Alright y'all, in this video I hope to make some pretty good progress on my engine here. Obviously here's the old 53 where I put it in the last video on the floor. This is my 56 block. I'm putting all the internals from the 53 into the 56 block. So that's what the crank's out of. The cam, pistons, rods, all that will be going right back into this 56 block. Everything looked to be in nice shape. So the first thing I've got to do is plastic gauge the crank bearings. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. The spec on that is supposed to be 475 thousandths. I believe that should be the max clearance. I've got some plastic gauge, so I'm going to have to go ahead and put my new bearings. I've got the new bearings in the block right now. These are just in here to hold the crank in while I was moving the engine. So I'll go ahead and put all my main caps and new main cap bearings in, and then I'll torque everything with plastic gauge in it. And then I can pull it apart and check all my clearances on the main bearings. And if everything's good, I can clean the plastic gauge off. And then I can go ahead and reassemble with assembly lube and torque the crankshaft in. And that part will be done. Then I'll move on to the piston ring gap, cleaning up my pistons. Installing the rings, and then getting the piston assemblies with the rods installed, and then move on to the rod bearings and everything. So in this video I hope by the time this video is over that at the least this thing is pretty much together besides the head. If everything goes well, I might be able to go ahead and put the head on too. So that's kind of what this video is going to be. It's just going to be building this engine. I'm not going over everything step by step. I'm just going to try to show a little bit of the process, and I'll talk about a few things as I go. So if y'all stick around, we'll get into this. So this is plastic gauge, that little red strip. Just a little small round piece of plastic like. The red measures, where'd it go? Let's see. The red measures from 2 to 6 thousandths. Green is for 1 to 3 thousandths. So I believe the green would be for my rod bearings probably. The red should be for the main bearings. And basically you torque everything with one of those little strips under your bearing cap. Don't spin your engine, and then you compare it and see how wide it gets here on the gauge, and then you know, well, once you unbolt your bearing cap after torquing it, you compare and see how wide the plastic gauge you got mashed down. And obviously the wider it gets, the harder it mashed it down, which means less clearance. But you just use this gauge, and then you can figure out what your main bearing clearances are. This is not the most accurate way of doing it. The most accurate way is with, proper measuring tools. And but this is plenty good for what I'm doing. So I'll just cut me a strip for each main, and I'll torque my bearings down, and hopefully everything comes out good. I think it will. And I'll show y'all kind of what it looks like after I get done torquing everything down. So this shows to install the crankshaft main bearings and measure the bore diameter with the bolts tightened to 130 foot-pounds, which this is not telling you to use plastic gauge, but we'll use the same process. And if you go down here, main bearing journal to bearing clearance spec is 475 thousandths of an inch. Alright, it's all torqued, so I'm gonna get them back off and check my plastic gauge. Alright, we got the main caps pulled back off. You can see where the plastic gauge transferred to the journal of the crank on each main there. And it's also kind of on the bearing. It's stuck to both of them. This one's a pretty good transfer to the crank. It's kind of hard to see in the light, but you can easily tell the width of all of them. So I've already measured them, and thankfully everything looks perfect. Basically, you take this and you can see the different readings there: 2000s, 3000s, 4000s, 5000s. So this should have a maximum clearance of 475 thousandths, and after that you have to grind the crank and use oversized bearings. And but basically, try to find maybe the best one to show. This one's maybe a good candidate, but they all are about perfect on 3 thousandths. You can just see you line it up with the width of the white line for 3 thousandths there. It's not small enough to be 2, so if anything, it could be just a touch tighter than 3 thousandths, but I think I would call that 3 on about all these. They're right on that 3 thousandths line. And then of course 4 thousandths and then 475 thousandths would probably be like, you know, about there. It squishes it less, the less bearing clearance, the more bearing clearance you have, the less it will widen the plastic gauge. It won't squish it as much. But this thing's showing pretty much perfect right on 3 thousandths on all of them. So I think that's perfect. Not worried about that at all. You can see it's also transferred onto my bearings here. So I'll have to clean all this up, put me some assembly lube on all the bearings, and do an actual torque on the crank this time, and it'll be in for good, I hope. All the mains are laid in. All holes look good. Crank's out, and I've got assembly lube on all the bearings. I know it's not showing up the best, but you can kind of see it there. I'm going to set the crank back in, and then I can lube the bottom bearings and torque everything down. This is the lube I'm using. Just Lucas assembly lube. Nothing special. Crank's laying in. Spins. You can tell it's spinning on that lube. Everything looks good. I think we can bolt our mains down. Everything has got assembly lube. Caps are all started. I haven't torqued them yet. It's time for supper, but I've got everything ready just to be torqued. And then the crank will be installed for good. So I've got all these torqued. You go 37 foot-pounds on everything, and then 44 foot-pounds on all these main bolts, and then 59 foot-pounds. Starting in the center and working your way out from there. And so I've got them all torqued at 59 foot-pounds, and then these are a torque plus bolt. So it means you torque them to a certain amount, and then you add 90 degrees, and it actually tells you on the bolt. You can see T plus 90 degrees. So, and then I've marked a straight line, roughly straight line on all of them. And I'm gonna go back with a breaker bar and put 90 degrees on them, and the crank will be torqued in. Right now it spins good and free, feels nice. So, seems like everything's looking all right. Well, you can see all my marks are sideways now instead of running long ways. I've got them all torqued plus 90 degrees from 59 foot-pounds. And I should mention that's the instructions for reusing the main cap screws, main bolts. If you buy new ones, there's a different procedure, but crank spins good and free. Spins nice. Feels good. So I believe we're good there. I think probably need to move on to the pistons next. Or I can start assembling the front, either way, but probably easier to put the pistons and rods in next. That way nothing's in the way, and I'll have the whole rotating assembly out of the way. Just so y'all know, gas is for washing parts. So I got my number 6 piston and rod cleaned up. It had a little bit of scoring on the sides, but I took a little emery cloth and they look pretty good. It's not going to be an issue, I don't think. Definitely not worth replacing. I've got my ring set here. And so the first thing I've got to do is check my rings at a depth of 3.5 inches, it says in the bore, and square them up with the piston, and then I run my feeler gauge in them and make sure all my end gaps are good. So I'm going to do that first, and if that works out, then I can go ahead and see about getting the rings on the piston and sliding one in the hole. So I've got my compression ring, or the top ring, about 3.5 inches in the bore. Spec on it is between 14 and 17 thousandths of an inch. I've got a 16 thousandths feeler gauge here. It goes in, it's a little bit snug, and my 18 won't fit, so should be no problem at all there. Here's the intermediate ring. It's spec between 33 and 45 thousandths, and it falls in that range, so we're good there as well. And lastly, there's the oil ring. It's supposed to be between 10 and 21 thousandths on the gap there, and my 20 wouldn't quite fit, and 16 went right in, so that puts me right there in a fine spot. So we're going to call that one good. I'm going to get them on the piston, and then I'll see if I can't get it to slid down in the bore. Time to slide some rings on. There's all the rings on number 6. Got the tops where the letters are all facing up. Some of them say top. You can kind of see it right there. Anyway, they're 120 degrees apart. The oil ring expander is 180 degrees to the other side from the actual oil ring gap, and should be ready to install this thing now. Got my old ring compressor on here. Got it cinched down pretty snug. Hopefully it'll work all right. I've never used it. It's older. Like I said, I think it came from my grandfather's stuff, so he may use this a time or two. I'm not sure. But I'm gonna try to give it a few pecks and see if it'll slide down in there. I've got everything lubed with fresh oil, so. Beautiful. That went excellent. Good deal. Didn't try to hang up or anything. That's what I wanted right there. Pretty surprised how well that worked. I didn't even know if this ring compressor would fit when I first started. So thankfully, got the first one in the hole, no issues. My oil ring expander.
Oil ring expander?
Yeah, that's what they show it called.
Yeah.
It's got to be, the groove on it's got to be 180 degrees out where it meets together from the actual oil ring.
Okay. Like a little wire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the actual oil ring.
This is the ring here. Slide around in there good.
So the ring gap is 180 degrees from the expander gap.
Yeah, the expander
And on the other side.
where it meets together is, about right here.
Okay.
They just don't want it close to the actual ring gap. And then these are 120 degrees. All these rings are 120 degrees apart.
Okay.
Roughly.
Give or take. Putting the assembly lube on them. Is that what it is? Or
This is just oil,
oil?
clean oil.
Clean oil.
You know what?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put that on right. Put the,
Upside down?
yeah,
So what's the right way to put it on there?
that little bitty marking. Got to go up. I don't know if you can see it or not. All the markings always go up.
I should have put the glasses in.
It's okay. All the markings just go up. Some of them say top and some of them say different things.
Okay, yeah. Some of them got a little dot, and some got a
I'll make sure.
writing that says top or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's better.
Hold better.
Now let's try this one again.
So this is the second ring, the middle ring.
Yeah, I think it says intermediate.
Intermediate ring.
I think that's what they're calling it. Just using that piece of plastic so I don't scratch it.
Well,
Take some pressure to get them on.
Got the dot up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got this one up. good.
Okay.
It's in groove,
Mm-hmm.
rotating it around 120 degrees.
Yeah, I'm keeping it on the size of the piston pin there.
Okay. One more.
I don't know if you really need to oil these. I just put a little bit on them so they
Can't hurt nothing.
slide easier. That one says top.
That one says
You-
top.
Yeah, you won't be able to see it probably. It's not black. It's just kind of stamped in there.
Yeah. In there.
Look, it moves good.
120 degrees off the other way, huh?
Yeah, somewhere thereabouts. That's it.
Thing right there is handy. Don't
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah, that's made it
Yeah.
much better.
Put the cap on them.
I'm just gonna spin it a little more.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think should spin it now. Should be able to spin it now, I think. I'll do the spinner.
That head look good on. Waiting on you. He does just stuff like that, or does he put them together, take them down?
He might put them together.
Does it?
You got it down now, don't you?
Yeah, that'll work.
Rod bearings.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, those.
It's got some little half moons on the bottom side, I guess, that's supposed to keep it from going down in the cylinder.
Oh, okay.
But they're not very stuck out, you know.
Yeah. Huh. I think I've ever seen one like that.
It works pretty good.
Yeah.
Kind of like the way it's made.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. How does that go?
Just got this thing that
How come it's got the notch on both sides? Or
Well,
the other side comes.
I don't
I guess
really
the
know.
tang on the other side comes into there, maybe.
It shouldn't come
on the
into
cap.
there.
On
I,
the cap.
I don't know why they did it that way. The tang on the, can't remember which side it's on the cap, but it won't. It shouldn't go into that. On the power stroke light.
Gotcha.
All right, let's see what happens.
Damn good.
I wonder if this thing is trying to go in.
Might ought to pull it back out. You don't break no rings.
I don't, but I mean this thing's flush against the
No, is it?
deck everywhere. Yeah,
Hmm.
that don't necessarily mean doesn't mean hanging.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of snagged on me.
okay. Yeah.
Old bearing.
That's off your old engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Off the 53.
Yeah. That's the new bearing, and that's the person.
New and old.
Hmm.
It looks kind of scored, but I don't think it is.
Yeah,
it's
it's just kind of.
just
I don't think it's bad shape. It just.
no. No, it's not
Really,
bad.
it's not bad. You don't see no hopper or nothing on it.
Nope.
Little assembly lube on the rod journal.
Mm-hmm. Upper side of the crank.
You pack it.
I can take it a little bit. Make sure it kind of sits on there. There it is.
Good, man.
The number sides made up on these. Of course, you can only put them one way.
Yeah, okay. Dip the heads of the bolts in oil.
Yeah, just got a little engine oil on the bolts. Hands are too slick to turn them.
Just snugged all them up so far.
Yeah, I'm just snugging them. I'll go back and torque them later. Alright, y'all. Well, luckily Dad showed up yesterday, and I didn't get any video of him. I should have, but he cleaned up a few pistons for me. I think I had maybe 3 of them in before he got here, and luckily was able to get them all in. He cleaned these 3, and I cleaned these 3. I didn't clean them near as good on the top, but now I got them good on the around the outsides. But he actually shined them up pretty good. You can see the spray pattern in the bowl there. Kind of cool. But they all went in pretty good. I've got my rod bolts and caps just snug. I haven't torqued anything, but I sure am glad to have a rotating assembly in this thing now. And really, everything from here is a little more minor, not quite as tedious of work, I don't think. So, just gotta put my front cover and cam and time everything, and hopefully I'll have a cylinder head back at some point also. I hope to get it this week probably. But I'm hoping that I can have this thing back together pretty quick now, or somewhat quick. It's still gonna take some time, but I feel like I'm making progress, at least what I'm trying to say. So definitely looking better.